Hi everybody, my name is Sonia Luksa and I hail from Santan Valley, Arizona. I am originally from the Midwest though. I'd like to think that while this picture is not of me reading a book, when I do have free time, I'm definitely engaged in this activity for a good majority of the time. I would like to say that I'm also an educator of growing minds as well as their ideas. A little bit about my teaching career background. I initially thought, hey, I want to be with junior high students. That's a great age. They're still being, very easily molded, if you will. They're accepting of taking in ideas. And so I was like, okay, this is where I want to be. So I spent a couple years. I started off as a para in a self-contained special education classroom before becoming the school librarian and finally ending up as a pull-out reading teacher to enhance those students who were already struggling in the English classroom. It wasn't very long after taking on the position as the reading teacher that I decided to move up to the high school. It was time for a change, a new challenge, and so I decided, sure, I'll try upper grades, and found that I loved high school students, and they were fun, and you could be witty and a little bit sarcastic with them, and they very much appreciated that sense of humor. And I was only in that role for a couple years before I chose to move out here to Arizona, and so now I work at Coolidge High School, have been there, this is my 5th year there. I've spent the last 4 years teaching seniors, but this is my first year teaching 100% freshmen, while I've had a couple freshman classes up until then. And I've taught anything from on-level to honors to even AP level students. My philosophy, number one, relationships first. Especially when I started working in Coolidge, I realized that my students, they wanted to know me. They wanted to know that they could trust me. And so it took a little bit, and I think the longevity of my position, meaning like I've been here, I'm a consistent figure, face in the hallways, and it's really helped to build relationships even with the younger siblings, because they know, oh yeah, I had Mrs. Luksa. So one of the other items is engagement between diversity, meaning diverse topics, as well as our diverse authors, and bringing in some of their own culture into what we are reading. I have found that this works wonders and has helped those students see themselves in some of the roles of the characters we've read about, which made for a lot better comprehension as well as engaging in the material. Last but not least, this is something I learned a little later than most people, is the idea of a work-life balance. Not so much in just like, okay, yeah, that's healthy, but it also creates a happier classroom environment, because if the teacher's happy, then she can focus on making the students comfortable and enjoying that time together. Some of the things that I feel are my strengths, one, again, is knowing my students. I spend about 2 weeks at the beginning of the year where we don't do anything as in regards to any types of real, learning activities. It's more about learning them and their interests. Again, diverse content, whether it's the authors, the genre that we're reading. So I've long said that, English is more than the rantings of old dead white men. And while there is definitely something to be learned from that, this isn't the demographic of the world we live in, and students need to see their presence in the things that we're reading. Some of the weaknesses, I would say technology. Even making this took a little bit of learning and know-how. And just making English fun. I feel like there are definitely aspects that can be more interesting and fun for students, but English is by far a little bit more complicated when it comes to bringing up the fun level. opportunities. For me, one of my goals by getting this master's is to move away from the classroom to work within the district, my district, that I want to stay with the school system, but I do not see myself as a career or life teacher in that regards. Some of the threats that have kind of like I've been seeing a lot more in the last probably couple years is the current teacher shortage, which has led to teachers being burned out by the increased responsibilities and just the hardships of it all. Some of my influencers, I would say first and foremost, Mrs. Upchurch, my 5th grade teacher. She is the one who told me, follow your dreams with writing. And while I wouldn't consider myself a writer at this point, I would love to write a book someday about my teaching experiences or something in the realm of education. She definitely was the first influencer for me. When I was receiving my teaching certificate, I learned a lot about Howard Gardner, and whether you believe in multiple intelligences or his ideas on how students retain the information that they learn, we have come to embrace the idea that we need to try different ways to get our kids to engage in the material, and whether that means they need to move around a little bit or it means they need to access something, in technology or something more visual. Those multimodalities are paramount with that. And then Lev Vygotsky is not somebody that I just learned about in my previous course here at ASU. He is somebody who has guided my understanding of how students learn. And one of the quotes that I really appreciate from him was, "A mind cannot be independent of culture." So his focus was very much on the cognitive abilities of students in the environments that they learned in and how they socialized with others and how that helped with the learning process. Gardner's ideas, I actually have a poster of something much like this in regards to how students really think about like how they comprehend and how they actually learn content. And my poster says something like, I learned 10% of what is read to me, and I learned this percentage of what I do if I'm engaged in activity. But at the end here, at the bottom, 90%, students will retain 90% of what they're trying to teach others, which is very much a philosophy I have in my classroom, where whether they're working in small groups, not necessarily on projects, but just as they're learning, as we're doing the gradual release model, I find it's very effective if other students are sharing their ideas and they're explaining to their peers who maybe aren't quite grasping it yet. And that goes very far in students' retention of the information. And last but not least, a quote. And yes, while I know he's a comedian, I do believe that George Carlin said it very well, that it's not just about teaching our students to read, which is a large part of what we do as English teachers, but I've really embraced the idea of having them question lots more about, what is it I'm reading? Do I agree with this perspective? Talking about argumentative writing and reading of persuasive texts, and having them say, well, yeah, but I don't agree with that, but I agree with this. So the more they question it now and realize, hey, my ideas are valid, they take a lot more ownership of the classroom, and I feel like that's important in any classroom. Well, everybody, it's lovely to meet you, or I will be meeting you hopefully pretty soon through your presentations like this, and I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening.